Welcome back to Warhammer 40,000 presented by MGM. I'm Jimmy, and today we've got the Dark Angels facing off against Nathan's Aeldari. We're fighting at the incursion level as the Deathwing get ready to tussle with the Strands of Fate. It's all coming up next on Miniature Game Montage, a great place for casual gaming. Now first, I want to say thank you to Nathan of Heroic Scale Wargamers for hosting and helping me learn 10th edition. This battle report was filmed live, and you can see the full report on their channel. I highly urge you to check them out and give them a subscription. A link will be in the description below. It's free and will help support their efforts to make the hobby better. Okay, my Deathwing are led by a Strike Master with Shroud of Heroes. He'll be attached to a unit of Deathwing Terminators with various gear. Everything is WYSIWYG. I've got another unit of Deathwing Terminators, 2 units of Primaris Intercessors, and a unit of Deathwing Knights, in total 950 points. Nathan's Harlequin-based Aeldari battle host has 2 Death Jesters, 2 Shadow Seers, and a Solitaire. One of the Shadow Seers will have the Weeping Stones. There's also a Troop Master with 3 squads of troops with various equipment, and they're backed up by 4 Star Weavers. Today we'll be playing Take and Hold from the Leviathan Tournament Pack. Players can score 5 points per objective they hold to a maximum of 15 points starting on turn 2. There will also be some flexible secondaries from cards that we can draw. As this is a learning game for both of us in 10th edition, there may be some mistakes here and there, but the fun is in the dice rolling. With both sides deployed, we're ready for turn 1. The Aeldari are up first. Alright, prior to turn 1 beginning, Fate dice hit the deck. These will be sorted accordingly. This is the Aeldari special rule, and a pretty powerful one at that. As we look to turn 1, the Aeldari are going to take it with a 5 versus the Dark Angels 2. They will draw 2 cards, getting Attempting Target and Behind Enemy Lines. For Attempting Target, I'm going to nominate the center target, and we are off to the movement phase of the Aeldari for turn 1. And in the start of the movement phase, Nathan moves one of his Death Jesters down the right flank. The Solitaire rolls an advance of 4, and that's going to allow him to just get onto the objective. Several Star Weavers in the background carrying various payloads are going to reposition. One of the Star Weavers does roll up a 6 on an advance, carrying a unit of troops, and he moves down the right flank as well. In the shooting phase, the Death Jester targets the Terminators that he can now see, firing his Shrieker Cannon, 3 attacks needing 2s, and this has sustained hits 3. He only rolls 2 dice, getting 1 sustained hits 3. He then uses a Strand of Fate to get another 6, generating sustained hits 3 again. After wounding on 3s, 2-up saves are required and made. Unparalleled foresight, however, allows him to re-roll one of his missed hits and one of his missed wounds. He did forget about this. He re-rolls out one of those hits, which converts. He does wound on that hit, and he does re-roll one of the failed wound rolls, which also hits. The Deathwing require 2 more saves, and 1 will be failed. With 2 mortal wounds on the unit, the Deathwing elect to use a command point to reroll. It's good. We go to the Dark Angels for the bottom of 1. Alright, bottom of 1 underway. Deploy, teleport, Homer, and secure No Man's Land are pulled. Nathan chooses the objective on his left flank, in which these intercessors rolled up a 3 on their advance. They're going to check up short. Terminators in the center are going to move and realize they don't have enough, elect to roll up in advance and move on to that center objective. Deathwing Terminators on the Dark Angels left flank elect to move. The last unit of Intercessors is holding firm on an objective, and the Aeldari are going to use Phantasm for a CP, allowing one of these Death Jesters to move 7 inches, and he's going to jump out of line of sight from these Terminators. Now, since the Solitaire is a lone operative and the rest of the Dark Angels advanced or are out of range, they have no eligible targets to shoot, and it ends their turn. In hindsight, a stratagem like Fire Discipline would have been handy here, allowing the Terminators to advance and still fire as if they had assault weapons. Dark Angels missed it, however, and we are moving to turn 2. And going to the top of turn 2, the Aeldari will score 5 points on the primary, bringing the score 20, Dark Angels 12. The Aeldari will pull Cleanse and bring it down for their secondary objectives. Fate dice rolls up a 4 and we go into the movement phase. A Star Weaver does continue down the right flank, now bringing the Terminators into firing range. At the center of the board, the Solitaire elects to blitz 2d6, and unhappy with this result, he uses a CP and then puts in a Fate die, making that 11 inches. The Solitaire is immediately able to move into the Dark Angel's backfield and threaten that back objective. Movement continues with Star Weavers moving down the Aeldari left flank. With one Star Weaver staying back on an objective, we are going to see that Death Jester pop out. As we open up the shooting phase, the Primaris Intercessors are going to take fire from a Star Weaver, 2 Shuriken Cannons firing 6 shots needing 3s. Sustained hits does not kick off, he does get 2 hits. And he will need 3s to wound, and this is AP 1, so it would put my save on a 4+. One of those wounds will go through. Dark Angels roll up a save and make it. And while the Intercessors are able to stave off one of the Star Weavers, firing deck 6 has a lot more shots coming into them, plus additional Star Weavers as well. The firepower proves to be too mighty and the Intercessors are taken off the board. Over on the other flank, the firing deck proves to be ineffective against the Terminator's 2-up saves. Shuriken Cannon fires with 6 shots and it connects with sustained hits. With 3s needed to wound, he is going to get 4, and that forces 3-up saves at AP 1. The Deathwing do fail 2 saves, does 4 damage, takes down a model, and another is on 1 wound. The Dark Angels decide to play the stratagem Grim Retribution, allowing them to return fire in this phase as if it was their shooting phase. Assault Cannon will open up first, 6 shots needing 3s. Now they do have lethal hits due to the Strike Master. We thought this was actually sustaining, so added 2 more dice to the pool. Those should be auto wounds, we missed that. Carrying on, it is Strength 6 against Toughness 6, which means forced wound. 3 4-up saves required, all are good. The Stormbolters fire next, a ton of shots, rapid fire, and they hit on 3s. Needs 5s and 6s to wound, however, they do a pretty good job here. The Star Weaver is on a 4-up save, however, with no AP, and it looks like he just fails 1. The Strike Master fires next with his Stormbolter. We fire this separately because he hits on 2s, and while he is going to cause some damage and a save will be failed, the Star Weaver is not destroyed. The Dark Angels allow the Aeldari's turn to resume, and one of the Death Jesters is going to cleanse the objective, scoring some secondary victory points. With shooting complete, we move into the charge phase, where the Solitaire is easily going to make it into combat with the Intercessors. Now, because the Solitaire did blitz, he gets an extra 3 attacks, 12 total dice hitting on 2s, 9 will hit, and then he rolls up needing 3s to wound, and it's quite a bit of damage going through onto the Intercessors. AP2 does take their save to a 5-up. Now, I believe this weapon is 2 damage each, and I think he might have counted them as 1 here, where 1.5 guys would have died. That should have been 3. The Intercessors are able to swing back and put a wound onto the Solitaire, and we get ready to move over to the Dark Angels for the bottom of 2. Both players take up a command point. The Dark Angels select one of the Star Weavers for their Oath of Moment, draw 2 cards, get behind enemy lines, and engage on all fronts. The Primaris Intercessors start by falling back, playing Intractable for a CP. This stratagem allows them to shoot and charge even though they fell back. The Deathwing on the Dark Angel's left flank, they're going to continue to make their way towards the objective. The Deathwing at the center of the board make a move, and maybe a critical mistake here, as they look to bring one of those Star Weavers into charge range, leaving one of the Terminators on the objective. Down from Deep Strike come the Deathwing Knights, and they strike onto the board at 9 inches from the Aeldari, looking to threaten their back objective, and we move into the shooting phase. The Aeldari dig back into their bag of tricks, however, playing Phantasm again for a CP, allowing this Solitaire to essentially jump away out of line of sight from these Intercessors. The Terminators fire the Stormbolters. We do have a few in rapid fire range, so doubling their attacks. They do hit on 3s, but they're going to wound on 5s and just can't get it done. The Cyclone Missile Launcher fires a Crack Grenade next, hits on 3s, and just needs 3s to wound at Strength 9. He does get a wound, but a Fate die is used to automatically get an Invuln save on a 4. The last Stormbolter from the Sergeant is able to take a wound off of a Starweaver. We then move to the Deathwing left flank, where they're all targeting the Death Jester. With a hail of bullets from the Assault Cannon and Stormbolters, the Deathwing take down the Death Jester and declare a charge into the Starweaver. They easily make it into contact with a charge that they really can't fail, and we move over to the Deathwing Knights, where they roll up needing a 9 to get into contact on the objective. They do fail, but they use a command point reroll and get a 9 on the nose. The Knights, having to deal with some terrain here, are eligible to get 3 of their fighters into engagement range. The Intercessors, although they control the objective, trying to get the Solitaire off, they roll up a 6 on a charge and move into contact. Not realizing just how deadly the Solitaire is in combat, he fights first, hits on 2s and wounds on 3s with 12 attacks, and eliminates the Intercessors this time. Back on the other side of the board, the Deathwing Knights are able to explode a Starweaver, and the troop come piling out. Deathwing Terminators on the Dark Angel left flank are able to successfully bring down their Starweaver as well. It blows, causing one of the Terminators to take a mortal wound. The explosion also kills 2 of the troop inside. And turn 2 in the books, not a particularly good turn for the Dark Angels, no secondaries scored. The Aeldari are going to score 10 on the primary, going up 33-22. They do draw area denial and no prisoners. With both players ticking up a command point, we do have a Death Jester that is getting out and moving to the objective on the Dark Angel's right flank. We then have troop disembarking from one of the Starweavers, heading towards the Deathwing Knights. A Strand of Fate is used, giving the Starweaver a 5 on its advance. It then moves to the center objective. The last Starweaver is going to make its way towards the Deathwing Knights as well. In the Dark Angel's deployment zone, the Solitaire is free to move into the terrain here, and he is out of line of sight. With everything pouring into the Knights, the multiple fusion pistols with Melta 2 and Nero Disruptors end up taking a good amount of the Deathwing Knights down. The rest of the shooting phase goes a bit how you would expect. The Harlequins over on this flank blink a few wounds off the Terminators. The Deathwing spend a CP for Grim Retribution, firing back and taking down 2 of the Aeldari. We go into the charge phase, where we do have a charge from the troop into the Knights. Pretty much everything over here going into the Knights. With all of the Aeldari piling into the Deathwing Knights, the sheer weight of the dice end up taking down many of them. The Knight Master does swing back and eliminates one of the unit of troops. The Aeldari are going to score 5 points for area denial as we move to the bottom of turn 3 for the Dark Angels. And the Dark Angels are unable to get anything on the primary as they start to fall behind in this one. Declaring their Oath of Moment, they draw Investigate Signals and Overwhelming Force. A Battle Shock test from the Knight Master is failed. The Deathwing Terminators head towards the center and that Starweaver, trying to take him off of this center objective. The other Terminator squad then surrounds the remaining troop on the left flank. Phantasm is once again played by the Aeldari. They abandon the objective, and he jumps out of line of sight. And with some successful shooting, the Deathwing Terminators are able to take down the Starweaver at the center of the board. With the Starweaver up in smoke, we move over to the fight phase, and a really bad roll from the Knight Master brings the Dark Angels' turn to a close. The Dark Angels will get 3 on the secondary Overwhelming Force. With the Aeldari scoring 15 on the primary, the score 48-25, we gear up for turn 4. Defend Stronghold and Overwhelming Force are drawn for the Aeldari. A Death Jester plays in advance, moving 10 inches. The Troop Master shuffles around. A Starweaver comes in to continue to threaten that last Deathwing Knight. The troop have embarked back onto that transport. They easily dispatch the Deathwing Knight. With some additional fire coming into the Deathwing Terminators, there's no damage to them, and that's going to wrap up the turn for the Aeldari. They achieve both secondaries for a total of 6 points. Bottom 4 for the Dark Angels, they do draw a tempting target and capture enemy outpost. They do score 10 on the primary as they make their way to the objective that was designated the tempting target. The Dark Angels do play Fire Discipline. They don't roll up enough on the advance, however, to get to the objective and end up taking out the Death Jester. And turn 4 concludes, the Dark Angels not getting anything on the secondaries. We have more or less decided to call this game. We do play out a turn 5 with some hypothetical moves. And my opponent Nathan was gracious enough to kind of show me some things to really help me improve my game. I obviously made a lot of tactical mistakes and misuse of stratagems, or maybe not using a stratagem when I potentially should, and I think it really shows on the tabletop when you're looking at a newer player, as this being my second game, versus someone like Nathan who really knows his army and the stratagems and the synergies that he can get out of those. When everything was said and done, there was a 16-point difference between us, and the Aeldari will come away with the victory today. I had a great time playing this game. I would like to say thank you so much to Nathan over at Heroic Scale Gamers. This battle report was a little bit different than normal, as I was filming off location and just didn't have my regular setup handy. At any rate, I still hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video. We have a lot of things going on right now with introducing channel memberships. I have also opened up a small merch store, so you can check out some t-shirts and hoodies and that type of thing. I had a lot of fun just designing some of that stuff up. Big thank you as always to the Supporters Club. Your names are on the screen now. Be sure to check out Heroic Scale Gamers and subscribe to their channel. Once again, thank you so much. We will see you in the next one. Take care.